Hi everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I am reviewing a pen from Christoph. It is the Pocket 66. This pen was loaned to me by a fellow pen enthusiast here in Melbourne, and so I've been just using a international short cartridge there, Diamine Syra. Haven't eyedroppered the pen, just so you're all sort of aware it can be done, but yes, let's talk about the pen. I'll go over the specs and all of that sort of stuff, and then do a writing sample and then tell you some pros and cons. Okay, I want to start by showing how these pens come packaged, because I think it's really great. Like, nothing fancy, a little cardboard box, which I love. Christoph logo there on the front with the 4 diamonds, which is great. And then as well as like a couple of cartridges and some, cards, business cards and things like that. It comes in this little leather zippered pouch, like a little pencil case, which I think is great because not only is it functional, but it is super usable if you wanted to, carry a pen and a pencil or something around, for work, or didn't want anything bulky in your bag, had to carry a couple of things. So packaging that is usable, packaging that is effective. Christoph nailing it. Okay. Now, Christoph is an American company, and they sort of hand machine the pens, and they come up with different materials. They've got a unique set of designs of their pens, and the materials sort of tend to go in and out depending on what is available. And then for things like pen shows, they have prototypes, so you get different colors and all of that sort of stuff. Really great. Really great. They also have a huge range of nibs available for most of their pens, like all the standard sort of grinds, extra fines through to, some stub nibs and things like that. Plus, for an extra $20, you can put a SIG nib, which is their specialty italic nib, or you could put for $90 a 14 karat gold nib, or for extra $95, a 14 karat gold flex nib. So there are many nib options. Now, this is the Pocket 66. So the regular 66 is slightly longer with this elongated barrel. Just that's really the only difference. And even though it's a pocket pen, it's not a small pen. Like, it is still a decent size. It's not huge, and you'll see in comparison to a couple of other pens, but it's not small like a Kaweco, Lilliput, or Sport, or any of those. The Pocket 6 from Sean Design or anything like that. This is almost a full size pen that is just on the slightly smaller side and smaller than its bigger brother. The one I have here is a medium nib, and the nib is branded with Christoph steel nib, and the pen, as in this form, comes in at about $155 American. This is the antique glass finish, which is a beautiful finish with sort of greeny blue tinged sort of acrylic. And then the sort of the textured barrel and inside of the cap, which I think is quite nice, designed to look a bit like an old soda bottle or something like that. Let's go run down from the top of the pen down to the end, and we'll talk about a few things. Okay, so firstly, on the top is you get, I don't know how well that's coming up, but you get the Christoph logo and the 4 diamonds on the top there, little beveled corners, and then the cap swells out. There's a slight little beveled step down onto the barrel. Barrel then tapers right down to this sort of fine conical point, once again with some little beveled edges. These beveled edges, these are a Christoph trademark. Like, if you see them on a pen, like, I'll show this pen a bit more later, but those are the beveled edges. So it unscrews in one screw, and the threads are up here at the top of the section, which is another unique thing that Christoph, not just unique to them, but something that Christoph do on a lot of the models of their pen. The threads are smooth, but there's a little slack in them. Like, they're not the tightest sort of threads, which is fine, but having the threads that high up means that there's less space around the nib for it to dry out, which is always a plus. There's no clip or anything like that, and as I said, the branding is minimal. It's a nice, simple pen. The pen unscrews off the barrel here. As I said, I put in a cartridge because I didn't want to stain the pen or anything unnecessarily. So cartridge there, it can be eyedroppered. You just need to put some sort of silicone grease on those threads, and it would look quite cool, I think, having ink sort of sloshing around in there. Although it does sort of grip to these sort of sides a bit, so it's not the same sort of smooth action that you get on some other sort of more polished barrels. So let's do some size comparisons. So here we have the Christoph, and I said it's not a small pen, but here alongside Lamy Safari, you see it's just not a big pen. Other pens I've got here to look at are the TWSBI Vac Mini, another smaller pen that when posted becomes a good size, and a Franklin Christoph Model 31. So, you know, sort of a full-size Franklin Christoph as well, which is, you know, a good example of sort of where they fit. I'll just quickly show this one. So if we post that, and then we post the Franklin Christoph, you see they are sort of quite sort of similar pens in terms of size, and which are similar, which are actually bigger than a Lamy Safari unposted, but posted, of course, it is bigger than both of them. It's not a small pen. I have to say that again, like, not a small pen. When it's posted, it sits nicely in your hand. It doesn't post as securely as I would like. It does have some give there because it's just acrylic on acrylic and it's that sort of conical shape. It doesn't like post particularly deeply, but it does post securely and the balance is fine. I find it to be on the usable side unposted, but for me, the only issue is this section in that respect. If you're holding it further back to get away from those threads, you do end up feeling the pen being a bit small in your hand. And the section is an odd shape anyway. So it's very beveled and there's like a little sort of odd sort of step through here, or it's just strange. I don't know if I like it or not, and I'm not sure about the threads on the end. I tend to, if I pinch down, which like my fingers tend to end up going down towards the end of the nib. You've got a number 6 size nib here, so there's quite a lot of distance sort of from the page. So I do end up coming down on the section, and I end up feeling those threads. And if I move back, I end up feeling that step down off the barrel. So for me, there's no perfect grip for this pen. It's just not the most ergonomically comfortable for my hand. I know a lot of people love this pen, and that's amazing. The measurements of this pen are 129 centimeters when it is capped. It is 123 when it is uncapped, once again making it just a sort of usable size if that section works for you, or it's 142 when posted, and it's quite a nice size. My only concern about posting this pen is that barrel cap likely to crack, just being a piece of acrylic. The section goes from 10 to 12 millimeters, which is quite a big difference, but you know, it's fine. The weight of the pen is 15 grams, 12 in the body, 3 in the cap. So when you post it, you're not changing the balance. It is still really down in this section and towards the nib, which is very handy. Let's do a writing sample. This is Clairefontaine 90 gram paper. As I said, I've got a Diamine Syra cartridge in here. Pocket 66. This is a medium steel nib, and the ink is Diamine Syra. Now, I've tried a number of nibs from Franklin Christoph, including a couple of mediums, and for me, this has got the most feedback of any that I have used. It's almost slightly stubby, and you feel those edges. Now, the gentleman who I borrowed this pen from didn't suggest to me that this was like a SIG grind or anything like that, but it does have a slightly sort of I'm not sure how well the camera will pick this up, but it does have a slight sort of stubby shape almost to the nib. I'm not sure. There is feedback. But you know, it writes quite well. It's not an unpleasant pen to write with. Quick writing. It keeps up. The ink does tend to sort of thin out, and that's one thing I have noticed, is that there are occasional times where, after sort of extended periods of writing, you do get a bit of ink starvation with this pen. Like, it's not a super dry pen, like it's laying down a nice amount of ink, but after, you know, a little while, I have noticed some ink starvation issues. It's something I have noticed with other Franklin Christoph pens as well, actually. So yeah, just something to, you know, to keep in mind. But let's just do reverse writing. It's It's kind of possible, but not particularly nice. And it is a stiff nib, so you are not going to get line variation from this. In fact, you can actually see already from where I started, where it was quite saturated, through to sort of here, it is putting less ink down on the page, and that tends to sort of keep going that way until I won't be able to get it to do today. I haven't done quite enough writing, but it will eventually sort of just stop writing, and you give it a second and it comes back and it's all good again. But it's fine. It writes nicely. It lays down a nice line. It does have an interesting little bit of shape to the line. You can see sort of on that crosshatch there's a little bit of a difference between the down and the cross stroke. So perhaps there is a grind on this nib, but yes, I've only got the information that I've got about it. So I writing with it on the page, all I notice is that there is a bit of feedback, and that there is a sort of a slight difference in the texture of the writing when you're doing your downstroke as opposed to your cross strokes. So let's talk some pros and cons then. For me, there's a couple of cons. Firstly, that little ink starvation issue occasionally is going to be an issue. If I'm writing for a couple of pages, it will dry out, which not great. It isn't the smoothest nib. There is that bit of feedback, and sometimes you get that with, feedback is okay as long as it's not scratchy. Sometimes you get feedback. I don't mind it, but it is there. The price, 155 American. Like, we're putting it in a price range that is not low. And you are getting something that's made by a small manufacturer and using unique materials, a beautiful material. The antique glass material here is beautiful. But, for a steel nib at this price point, and, its bigger brother being a bit more expensive, things like that, there's for me, there's just a little bit of a cloud over that price point. The other thing that for me is an issue is the section. It just doesn't feel comfortable in my hand ergonomically. The shape's a bit strange, the size, but also in the step down there, but the threads being there, it doesn't feel comfortable. If I grip it too tight, then it actually does start to feel uncomfortable underneath my fingers. The pros of this pen, firstly, this material. As I said, it's beautiful. The antique glass looks like a soda bottle, it's great. It's beautiful. Now, Franklin Christoph also do unique designs, which I am a big, big fan of. But I just wanted to bring this up here while I'm here. This is a Moonman pen. Came out recently. This is a much older model. There was some concern that, when this pen was released, that it was a knockoff of the Pocket 66, and then a couple of people suggested it wasn't. And while they haven't branded it the same way, like they don't have the logo on the top and they've just blind engraved Moonman there, which is actually a Franklin Christoph trait that isn't on this pen. It's still got the beveled edges, the full block acrylic sort of stuff there. It's, the threads are at the top of the section. There. Section is a similar sort of size. The pen in general is a similar size. In fact, the dimensions are almost identical. It's just a hell of a lot cheaper. It comes out of China. So for me, it's when you put them next to each other like this, it is very clear that the Moonman is putting it, very kindly, at a very, very, very bare minimum. This pen is highly inspired by the Pocket 66 from Franklin Christoph. And for me, that isn't cool. Just not cool. Yes, there are certain pens that look like other pens, but there are only so many things you can do with a pen design. There's enough unique about this pen design to see too many of the same traits in this pen. So, anyway, other pros of this pen, firstly, it's a sought after material. People will go after material like this. They'll wait until a Franklin Christoph pen is available in this material, and they will jump on it. So if you see one, you like it, get it when you can. And the other thing is, it can be eyedroppered. I've got an international short cartridge in here. It can be eyedroppered, which means you have a great ink capacity. It's, any pen that is eyedroppered is going to hold more ink than, a cartridge. And a pen like this with a good ink capacity, really handy to have around. So I hope you found this video about the Franklin Christoph Pocket 66 to be useful and interesting. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce, and please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_offstage_me, or you can contact me on any of my videos here or drop me an email, which is also listed down below. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review, get in touch and let's see what we can do. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you later.